Hello, good day, Fisher nurses. Before we dive into our topic, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt your heart racing before a big exam or during the clinical duty? That tight feeling in your chest, sweaty palms, or the sudden urge to escape the situation? That right there is anxiety, something we all experience. But for some individuals, it becomes overwhelming and persistent. Today, we are going to explore anxiety not just as a common emotion, but as a clinical condition, how it presents, how we assess it, and most importantly, how we as future nurses can support and care for individuals through it. Let's uncover the science, the symptoms, and the strategies to manage anxiety together. So, when we talk about anxiety, basically, anxiety is a vague feeling of a dread or apprehension, meaning to say that it is a response to either external or internal stimuli that can have behavioral, emotional, cognitive, and even physical symptoms. So, anxiety is distinguished from fear, which is the feeling afraid or threatened by a clearly identifiable external stimulus that presents a danger to the person. So basically, there we could see the difference between anxiety and fear because with fear, we know we can identify what is something that is threatening us. So, possible something that we feel that we are at or in danger. So basically, anxiety is unavoidable in life and it can serve many positive functions like um, in terms of motivating the person to take action, to solve a problem, or to resolve a crisis. So it is considered normal when it is appropriate to the situation and dissipates when the situation has been resolved. On the other hand, so we also have anxiety disorders. So anxiety disorders basically compromise a group of conditions that share a key feature of excessive anxiety disorders that can demonstrate unusual behavior like panic without reason or unwarranted fear of objects or life conditions or even unexplainable or overwhelming worry. So they experience significantly impairs their daily routines. It could also impair their social lives and even the occupational functioning. So here at this slide, we could see that on anxiety, usually it is triggered by a specific stressor. It has a start and an ending point. So, however, if we're going to look at the anxiety disorders, so basically we could take note that it is often comes out of nowhere. There is intense or disproportionate emotional response, and possibly it will be an ongoing situation that would last for weeks or even months. And because of that, it might interfere the day-to-day life of the person. So, as a response to anxiety, we could experience stress. So, according to the slide, there is no definition of stress that everyone agrees on. What is stressful for one person may be pleasurable or have a little effect on others. So, we all react to stress differently. So, according to Hans Selye, in 1956, stress is the wear and tear that life causes on the body. So it means that it will occur when a person has difficulty dealing with life situations, or if they are experiencing problems or having a hard time in reaching their goals. So each person handles stress differently. One person can thrive. Okay, so one person can thrive in a situation that creates great distress for other persons. So here we could see that there are different degrees of stress. So a stress could be a positive one, it could be a tolerable one, but sometimes for other people, it could be toxic. So basically, it is positive stress. So it just most likely affects our physical body. In brief instances, it will increase our heart rate. We could be more focused on the things that we are doing, and sometimes our hormones could be elevated. So what is good thing during the positive stress is that we could focus more on things that we need to do. Okay, however, on tolerable stress, so as compared to positive stress, tolerable stress is more serious, but it is temporary stress response that would mitigate by positive. So buffering influences or relationship could be a tolerable stress. Okay. On the other hand, sometimes we might experience intense and prolonged stresses. Okay, and because they are intense and prolonged, it might affect the way we think, the way we act, and because of that, it might influence or it might affect our relationship with others. Okay, that is why it is called as a toxic stress. Okay, so according to Hans Selye, so complete freedom from stress is death, meaning to say all of us will be experiencing stress. So Hans Selye is an endocrinologist, and he identified the physiological aspects of stress, which he labeled as the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS, General Adaptation Syndrome. So he used laboratory animals to assess biologic system changes, the stages of the body's physical responses to pain or even to heat, toxins, and restraint, and later the mind's emotional response to the real or perceived stressors. Okay, so there we could see that Hans Selye is telling us that all of us could experience stress. Okay, so it's just how we handle the stress that we are experiencing. So any situation, anything that might be happening to us that we are experiencing could produce stress among us. It just really depends on how we handle and how we perceive these stressors. So we have different stages of the stress reaction. So again, Hans Selye identified the three stages of reaction to stress. So the first level or the first stage for stress, as we can see on our slide, is the alarm reaction stage. So here, stress stimulates our body to send messages from the hypothalamus to the glands, like the adrenal glands, to send out adrenaline and norepinephrine for fuel. And aside from our glands, it could also send signals to our organs, like the liver, for examples. And when it gives signals to our liver, so it will reconvert glycogen that are stores there to glucose to be food. We could use them as food. So basically, these things happen to prepare us for potential defense needs. On the next stage, here we could see the resistance stage. So during the resistance stage, basically our body tries to fight back the stressors that we are experiencing by adjusting to those stresses. So, for instance, the digestive system will reduces function to shunt blood to areas that needed for defenses. So the lungs will also take in more air and the heart will beat faster and harder so that it can circulate this highly oxygenated and highly nourished blood to the muscles to defend the body by fight or flight or freeze behavior. So if the person adapts to the stress, the body responses by relaxing, and the gland, the organ, and the systemic responses abate. And lastly, we have the exhaustion or the exhaustion stage. So basically, this stage occurs when the person has responded negatively to anxiety and stress. So our body stores are depleted or the emotional components are not resolved, resulting in continual arousal of the physiological responses and little reserve capacity that we have. Okay, so what can we do? If we experience stress, there are some tips for us to relieve the stress. So, something that will release happy hormones, something that will release those hormones for us to be able to at least relieve the stresses that we might be experiencing. So, examples, we can do exercise. Okay, some people, when they are stressed out already, they want to do their hobbies like listening to music or playing with their pets. Some would like to be alone and meditate, and others, maybe when they are totally fed up and they are experiencing stress, they wanted to take a nap. So I personally, every time I'm stressed out, I like to dine out. I like to eat. I like to watch movies. I like to, of course, listen to good music. Okay, and maybe talking to friends. So here at this slide, we could see the four levels of anxiety. So this was made by Hildegard Peplow. So according to Hildegard Peplow, anxiety has both healthy and harmful aspects, depending on its degree and duration, as well as on how well the person copes with it. So anxiety has four levels, as we can see on this slide. So they are mild anxiety, moderate anxiety, severe anxiety, and panic. Okay, so we could see here at this slide the different psychological responses and even the physiologic responses of the body on each level of anxiety. So according to Peplow, mild anxiety, there is seldom a problem. Okay, meaning to say, it is very manageable. So for mild anxiety, it is a sensation that something is different and warrants special attention. So most of the time, people experience increased and they focuses attention to learn, to think, and to protect themselves. So when a person is experiencing mild anxiety, they are they are motivated to make changes or to engage in goal-directed activity. So just like what we can see here at this slide, usually something that will tell us that they have increased in focusing and in attention. If you will notice, they have wide perceptual field, so they are experiencing sharpened senses. So with that, meaning to say we are vigilant with our surroundings. So there is increased motivation. Mild anxiety is good for effective problem solving, increased learning ability. Okay, with that, I might say that during examinations or during lectures and discussions, having mild anxiety is a good thing. Okay, in terms of the physiologic responses, they could experience restlessness, fidgeting. Sometimes they could feel that there are butterflies on their stomach. Okay. They are hypersensitive to noise. Just like I have stated, there is vigilance on their thinking, on their action, and there is difficulty in sleeping. So for moderate anxiety, they might experience, or from wide perceptual field, there will be diminishing in the perceptual field. So just like what we can see here, there is perceptual field narrowed to immediate task, meaning to say, instead of having their attention on all of happening within the environment during moderate anxiety, they are focused on the task. Okay, so meaning to say there is selective attentiveness. Okay, they cannot connect thoughts or events independently, and increased use of automatism. So basically, we could see more the mannerisms that they have. So for physiologic responses, we could see, aside from the things that have stated during the mild anxiety, it is aggravated more by muscle tension, diaphoresis, pounding pulse, headache, dry mouth, high voice speech, a faster rate of speech, GI upset, and frequent urination. Okay, so most likely when I was a nursing student during return demonstrations, most likely I'm experiencing moderate anxiety. Okay, so maybe you as well are also experiencing that during your return demonstrations. So during moderate anxiety, always remember that there is a disturbing feeling that something is definitely wrong. With that, the person becomes more nervous, they are more agitated. That is why they are just focusing on their task. However, it's not too bad to experience moderate anxiety because it could be still manageable. However, we just need to make sure that we could be able to contain it because it might lead to severe anxiety. Okay, so for severe anxiety, basically, it is characterized that the perceptual field is so diminished that concentration center on one detail only or on many extraneous details. So with that, we could see that the person is having trouble thinking already. They are having problems in terms of reasoning. Okay, so because of that, they cannot complete their task. They cannot solve problems to learn effectively. So the behavior is geared toward anxiety, relief, and is usually ineffective. So in terms of the physiologic responses, so if you will notice from moderate anxiety, they are experiencing headache. However, for severe anxiety, they are already experiencing severe headache, nausea, vomiting, even diarrhea. So there is trembling, rigid stance, okay, vertigo. They are pale and experiencing tachycardia because of the too fast heartbeat. They could experience chest pain. Okay. And lastly, if we cannot manage severe anxiety, it could lead to the most intense state, which is panic. Okay? So for panic, the perceptual field reduced to focus on self. So they cannot understand anything around them. So they're just focusing on themselves. Okay? So what we need to remember is that during panic, it always accompanied by the fight, flight, or the freeze response. Okay? So, what can we do if our patients are experiencing anxiety? So, always remember that we need to stay calm. CALM, calm. So, C stands for being calm. Make sure that you are calm. Always remember that anxiety could be contagious. If your patients would feel that you are anxious, they could also be anxious after. Okay. So next, we could give anxiolytics. So anxiolytics that we could use. So go back to the discussions that we have in terms of medication and study again anxiolytics. Okay. So next, make sure that you are willing to listen, okay? So listen to their concerns. Encourage them to verbalize what they are feeling. And if you do that, make sure that you are actively listening to the things that they are saying, that you are actively listening to them, okay? And lastly, we try to minimize the environmental stimuli because more stimulus around them could lead to a higher level of anxiety. Okay, so as we wrap up our discussion about anxiety, I hope that now you see it not just as a diagnosis, but seeing it as deeply human experience, one that demands empathy, understanding, and skilled nursing care. So remember, behind every anxious patient is a story. Behind it is a struggle and a need for someone to listen without judgment. Okay? So, as a future nurses, you have the power to be that calm presence in someone's storm. Let's carry this knowledge forward, not just in theory, but in practice, with compassion at the heart of all we do. So, thank you and keep learning, keep growing, and keep on caring. So once again, this is Doc A and wishing you all the best. Hope that you learned something from today's discussion. Okay, thank you.